Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're gonna bake a beautiful rosemary olive focaccia bread. You're gonna love it, trust me. You will need 200 grams good quality olives. I use the ones with the pip here and just take out the pip a little bit later. Then 10 grams of fresh yeast. If you're working with dry yeast, just use 1/3 of the weight. Some rosemary. 500 grams of bread flour. 50 grams of good quality olive oil. You may use a little bit more in the end. 10 grams of salt. 320 grams of cold water. The water has the color because I used of that 320 grams, I used 50 grams of olive brine. Just use it if it really tastes good, otherwise just use the whole amount, just the water. I start off with my water and put it in my mixing bowl. Remember, we do use cold water here in this case. Then I add my yeast. You don't really have to dissolve it. If you do feel better, do so. But otherwise it will get mixed in with the kneading anyways. Then it's time to add my flour. And the salt. And then it goes in our kneading machine for about 7 minutes. I start off for the first couple of minutes, low speed, and then I put it up a little notch for the last few minutes. After 5 minutes of kneading, my dough looks like this. Pretty sticky, but don't worry, that's how it's supposed to be. Now I'll give it another 2 to 3 minutes at a higher speed. And this is how it looks then. Still basically the same, but don't worry, you've definitely done something right if it looks like this. Now we're gonna put a bit of our oil on our working surface. Just the dough doesn't stick. And don't worry, bread dough is supposed to be a little sticky. That is pretty much basically just the nature of bread dough. That just means there's a bit of water in it, and the more water you put in your bread dough, the juicier the bread will be in the end. Now I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil on top as well. And I'm gonna wet my fingers a bit with the oil so the dough doesn't stick on my hands. And the rest of the olive oil I just pour in our mixing bowl. So here's a little trick with the soft dough to give it a bit of structure, because most of the time the dough will come out very soft out of a kneading machine. If you do give it a few stretch and folds, just like this, the dough instantly gets a different structure, becomes a little more elastic and a lot easier to work. That's basically the whole trick, working with a wet dough. So now we're just gonna put it back in our mixing bowl. Just make sure you soak up all that oil before. And here we're gonna leave it for about an hour or till it just does double in size at room temperature. Just cover your dough with a wet tea towel and put a plate on top, or use a lid just to keep it from drying out. I chopped up half of my rosemary that will go in the dough later on, and the twigs I will keep to put them on top of the dough just for the garnish. Same thing we do with the olives. I took out the pip and then we're gonna chop them up roughly. Half of the olives will go in the dough and the rest just goes on top again. That is my dough after 1 hour. It has nicely doubled in size. It is beautifully proven, just perfect. Now it's time to add the olives and the rosemary. For that, we're just gonna pour it on the table, but before we prepare our baking tray, Therefore we need a bit of additional olive oil. I said before we may use some more olive oil. This is the extra olive oil we need, just to make sure the dough doesn't stick on the tray. But don't worry that we use too much olive oil. Focaccia does need quite a lot of olive oil. So now we're going to put the dough back on the working surface and gently flatten it out a little bit. Make sure not to punch out all the air that is in there. And then we just sprinkle all the olives, or half of the olives, over the dough. Just make sure you get a bit of olives everywhere. And the same thing we do with the rosemary, just sprinkle it all over the dough. And then we just fold it once and twice. And then we just put it on our baking tray. Make sure to mop up all the olive oil on your working surface. We don't want to waste that. That goes on top of our dough. And now we just leave it there for about 10 minutes just to relax a little bit. 10 minutes has passed. Now it's time to stretch out our dough a little bit. We just wetten our fingers with olive oil, and then we just pretty much press it down a little bit, press it and stretch it a little bit. Just same thing again, make sure you don't press out all the air, be gentle. And now we're going to put the rest of our olives on top of the dough, and we do the same thing with our rosemary twigs, and then we leave it for another 45 minutes at room temperature to proof again. You don't have to cover it at all. This is my focaccia after 45 minutes, ready to go in the oven. We're just gonna put in a few more holes with our fingers gently, and then we put it in the preheated oven at 250 degrees Celsius, just in the middle of the oven for about 25 minutes or until golden brown. This is my focaccia after 25 minutes, just perfect. Now we're just gonna use olive oil again. Yes, we do need some olive oil here. Just brush it in a little bit once more, just to keep it nice and moist. And just in case your bread has been sticking to the tray a little bit, don't worry, just leave it to cool down for a few minutes and then use one of those spatulas just to get it off the tray. No problem. As you can see here, whoop, it comes off easily. And now we leave it to cool down on a baking tray just to make sure the bottom doesn't get soft again. Now it's time to cut and check out our bread from the inside. This is a beautiful sound. And it just turned out nice and moist in the middle, beautiful crust, just a really, really nice, beautiful bread. Perfect. This is one thing you could do with it. Just put a bit of mozzarella tomato and rocket on it, and you have a fantastic bread. You're gonna love this kind of focaccia, trust me. I hope you enjoyed this video. In that case, please leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it yet, so you won't miss out on any new videos. And I hope to see you soon next time. Bye bye.